Welcome to a new video, and guess what I'm recording here with right now? It's Xperia 5 Mark II, and after the update to Android 12, and I want to answer the question if there's any new camera improvements with this device, which is almost 2 years old right now, and I think we'll check this out in this video, so let's get started. So the Xperia 5 Mark II comes with a triple 12 megapixel lens setup on the back and an 8 megapixel front-facing shooter. It was released roughly 2 years ago, and what you hear right now is the internal microphone. I'm recording 1080p 60 frames per second right now with the ultra wide angle. As you can see here, I'm walking around in the woods, in the nature, so I can use the internal mics because it's pretty quiet here right now. So what you want to do now is check out some other cameras and of course some photos. So let's do it. And you can record up to 4K 60 frames per second using the Video Pro app on the Xperia 5 Mark II. Using a little trick, you go to 1080p, set the frames per second to 60 frames per second, and then you go switch the resolution to 4K, and it will keep the 60 frames per second. So if you click on 60 frames per second, you only see 30 and 120, and 120 will crash the app, and only 30 will work on this one here. What do you think about the quality here of the Xperia 5 Mark II? I think it's still awesome for a flagship from 2 years ago, and a compact phone that is so cheap, that you can get so cheap currently here on the market. So actually it is not recording in 60 frames per second, but in 120 frames per second. So you can slow it down to 60 frames per second if you want to get a little bit of slow motion. But otherwise you get, if you convert it from 120 to 60 frames per second, also very smooth footage in 4K, and I don't see any issue when it comes to some overheating problems that I had on the Xperia Pro I. So this might be a very good alternative, especially if you want to do slow motion, where you can have 2 times slow motion with 60 frames per second because you're recording in 120 frames per second. Just bear in mind that it's 120 frames per second, and then that you will have, of course, a very large file size. The photos now, let's take a look at them. And even after 2 years, I think you can still get great photos out of the Xperia 5 Mark II. Here in the middle you can see the photo, on the left you can see the data, like for example the shutter speed, the megapixels, and also the lens I'm shooting with. So 6.9 millimeters would be the zoom lens, as you can see here. If I zoom in a little bit more at these 2 times roughly zoom that it is here, it is quite okay, but I would say it is a little bit soft. You can see a little bit of aliasing going on. This here especially a little bit of detail lacking still, but still I can like zoom in and show you this little winter garden on this rooftop here of the building, which is pretty nice. This is also another zoom shot, and of course you can digitally crop in a little more, but you can see that the details here already, it's okay, but nowadays we get better zoom shots. Definitely here I zoomed in a little bit further. I think this is the maximum zoom, and if I go to 100% you can see the details are a bit lacking here, and this is something you can get better with newer phones. Selfie camera, I think is pretty decent for 8 megapixels, and I think also the high dynamic range they tend to fix. Even though I think the 5 Mark III and the 1 Mark III still have the better selfie cams, even though it's the same sensor, the algorithms or also maybe a new revision of the sensor is helping the newer cameras. But I think even this 8 megapixel shooter is doing a good job here. As you can see, I'm quite sharp, and not as sharp as I would like to be, and other flagships, especially with autofocus, can handle. But I think it's still okay. You can see here a little bit of the HDR going on, so my fingers are like doubled here. But in general, if you don't share it, crop it to 100% and just share it like this on Instagram, you can go with this. The only issue with the selfie cam would be it falls apart in darker situations, definitely.
Then some other zoom shots, because I took a lot of zoom shots because I was near the river and there's some bird, as you can see here. I think it did a quite good job. It's a bit soft here and there, but you still get the details, you still get everything nice and sharp in that way that you know what's going on, and it's not distractingly bad in this case. And then of course the highlight, still the 1/1.7 inch size sensor can produce this creamy nice bokeh and very good close-up shots. You cannot get much closer as this here, but it's pretty good already. And this is the main lens here and the biggest sensor, and you can get so many details here out of this flower and have nice creamy background bokeh. This is just simply great. And if you know how to use this, you can create such beautiful shots that would have been looked a tiny little bit more dramatically if I've used the ultra wide angle. But I think this main sensor here is also pretty nice and wide and has the sharpness. I go in here, you can see, granted maybe in the background a little bit of like unsharp, but it is still very good. And these close-up shots, I really like them. Shooting flowers. And then of course the zoom shots, they have a bit of fringing here and there, they have a bit of HDR issues here and there, but I think you can still get away with this even today. Like this boat here, maximum zoom with the 50 millimeter equivalent lens here, and of course this is like super zoomed in. AI zoom was active, and by the way I was using Photography Pro here for this, and yeah, I think I had to get even the newest version of Photography Pro for the 5 Mark II as an APK download. If I go to 100%, you can see, okay, I can see something, but the details are lacking a little bit, but still it's great for some shots. Ultra wide angle is also good. I would say one of the best ultra wide angles still on the market, especially when it comes to like those edges here. They're not completely unsharp. They keep their sharpness level. They're not distorting too much. It's just, what is it, 18 millimeters roughly equivalent, 16 millimeters roughly equivalent. It's still awesome and good. And yeah, you can get nice close-up shots of flowers here, and look at the detail level here. This is now with the main lens. It's just there. It's just like, it's a good camera if you know how to use it. This is like the target audience is a photographer. If you know how to position yourself, how to play with the things, you can create a nice shot. But all of these shots until now are done via the automatic mode. So people are saying, no, it's just the automatic mode is working fine even on Sony's here, as you can see. Granted, this one here is a bit soft here because light was lacking a little bit. You can see denoising going on here. That's causing this a little bit to be less crisp as I would want, but it's an ultra wide angle shot, and for this it's still good. And another ultra wide angle shot, great. Detail level here a little bit less, but I also don't see much of an improvement here in terms of detail level, but I see a big improvement in terms of HDR, I would say, in contrast to earlier versions prior to Android 12 and prior to Android 11 actually, to be completely honest. But anyway, this is the zoom in shot, and as you can see here, nicely done. Everything automatic here. This one also automatic, as you see with the main lens here. You get this nice creamy background bokeh, and from there on I was using the manual mode. And to show you what you can do, up until now it was automatic mode, just snap the shot and that's it, just like on any other smartphone. And now the manual mode kicks in with all the great controls of the Photo Pro app and other things that you can do here, like for example underexposing the foreground a little bit to get like this really blue looking cloud background here with the Bayer chimney that you can see here of the, what is it, a chemical park of Bayer here. And yeah, this flowers here, this field of yellow flowers, I wanted to photograph it a little bit more to show you what you can do. Like now I was focusing on one of those flowers here instead of the background, and you can see I made it also a little bit brighter. You can see the clouds are more pronounced here. Here is a little bit overexposed in the background, but also unsharp. Also pretty nice shot, I think, with the main lens here. And this is now with the zoom lens, and this is also a manual mode where you can see what you can do. 3 different pictures, 3 different moods that you can convey with your shots just by using the app. And I think this one looks pretty awesome. The clouds are pretty good defined here. The Bayer chimney, you can see the Chem Park, you can even see the cross, the Bayer cross here, even if the details are lacking a little bit. It was simply not turned on because of daylight, but still it's the zoomed in shot, and you can see the sea of flowers here, you can see the clouds, you can see a little bit of shadow, all adding up to this photo, which is pretty nice. You can achieve this with this camera. I found some mushrooms from here. I zoomed in, maximum zoom in this case. The detail level is not the best, I have to say. Even if you have AI clear zoom active, it's adding here a little bit there, but it's nothing groundbreaking, and I don't see any improvements on Android 12. Another zoom in shot of those beautiful flowers. It looks really like a carpet of flowers, and here you can see you can play with the perspective. This is a zoomed in shot, this is the zoomed out shot with the main lens. Pretty interesting and awesome. And ultra wide angle, you can have this nice sun flares if you want to play around with them, which is also pretty nice here through the woods. And of course another one where you can see the sun there. High dynamic range is working fine, detail level is good. I think you can get pretty good shots out of it even after 2 years here, and I think also bokeh is nice and clear. Here and there you can see that some things could be a little bit clearer, and I think 12.2 megapixels is fine for viewing, but I would like them to also use pixel binning in the future. Maybe in a future release we will get it for a little bit more details that you can see here and there, because you can see if you go to 100%. Oh, okay, maybe not so much on the main lens, as well sometimes, but especially on the ultra wide angle on the zoom lens, that this is definitely a shot done by a smartphone. Then some other shots now done with the basic app on the Xperia 5 Mark II, the basic photo app, because the Photo Pro app, as I said, is like something I put onto the camera to use because manual modes work just simply better. And this is now the default on the Xperia 5 Mark II, which is the Sony camera application. It's still good in a way. I would say a little bit worse in terms of high dynamic range. You can see here a little bit of overexposure of the sky, which the Photo Pro app is doing a lot better. Maximum zoom here, lot of fringing going on. I think it's a little bit less clear. There's like, I think, a bird hiding here I wanted to photograph. And then this shot also, I think high dynamic range is lacking a little bit. We have some darker clouds here, but also a little bit too dark here. The exposure could be a little bit brighter. This is the main lens as well. So this is the ultra wide angle here. So this is basically it. Ultra wide angle, you can see the detail level could be better with higher megapixel, but I think still a solid camera setup. And if you know what to do, what you're doing, you can get away with the Xperia 5 Mark II. Especially if you photograph, you like to play around with the manual mode, you can get good photos out of this camera. And I think the auto mode also showed you, if you position yourself correctly and have a little bit of basic knowledge on how to take photos, you can get pretty nice shots with the Xperia 5 Mark II. At least I was like amazed after 2 years that you still have a solid photo tool that you can use, photography tool, in automatic, but also in manual mode. And what do you think? Write it down in the comment section.
And now I switch to 1080p 60 frames per second, and if you think that I was like a little bit wobbly, that the image was not stable enough, I'm walking now a little bit slower because I was walking too fast, and this caused it, of course, not to work as good, especially on this ground that is not even, so uneven ground. What do you think about 1080p 60 frames per second? What do you think about the video quality? I think it is pretty good and still awesome, this Xperia 5 Mark II. So if you're looking for a compact, good alternative to all the other Samsungs and iPhones, then I can definitely recommend Sony, because the cameras are better than what people make you believe on YouTube, especially when you watch some of the YouTubers there. So yeah, Xperia 5 Mark II, I think it's still a good phone and also good for cameras and recording and vlogging and so on, as you can see here in this footage. And yeah, this is all recorded, by the way, with the internal microphones, because I don't have much around me besides a little bit of wind that you might hear, and yeah, nature. So what do you think about this Xperia 5 Mark II? Still a good thing in 2022, especially with the Android 12 update? I think so.